So guys, I'm Emma Van Smale. I'm an innovation and transformation consultant for the most part, but I also dip into educating. I am from a company called the 25/8 Group, and that's just a bit of an umbrella brand. We do a bit of strategic consulting at that level, but a lot of our products are that we deliver to consumers are under the brand marketing Entourage, which is what we'll be talking about today. And we also do an initiative called the Regional Growth Project. So under Marketing Entourage, we kind of cover 10 major areas when we work with a business. So the first kind of 1 to 6 is really around, I guess, that strategic stuff. So vision, market position, target customers. And 6 to 10 is where we start to really look at implementing and deploying and measuring and iterating. So that's just a little bit about what Marketing Entourage does. But today we are here to talk about tips to getting found online. This is a beast of a topic, so I have picked little bits and pieces to hopefully get you to walk away with some good tips and some good actions. We'll be going through a little bit of a background just to set the scene. We're going to go deep on some search and organic stuff, so stay with me there, and we'll come back out the other side to do some key takeaways. So marketing, I love this cartoon. I really think that it sums up the evolution of marketing perfectly, where we go from the old snake oil salesman all the way through to these hawkers into this zone that we're in now, where marketing is consumer led. They own it. We have consumer advocates, and we really need to be kind of managing those people. So essentially, marketing is about reaching and connecting with the right people at the best time with a compelling message and a great experience. And we're doing this so that people know you exist, will choose what you're selling over others, will stay loyal to you into the future, and will recommend you to others. So it's good to think about why we're doing the marketing as well. Just a little bit of context, I guess, around how marketing has changed a bit. I think we are really used to that old style of marketing where we're doing the marketing at the front of the funnel and trying to get people in, and then we move into this stepped out sales process. I think these days that front of the funnel, or that education, goes for a much longer time. People are moving through information, educating themselves, and kind of actively buying for a much longer period of time. So essentially, we're moving from grabbing attention to holding attention, from just eyeballs seeing something to interfaces, from crafting a big targeted message to actually just designing an encompassing experience. And it wouldn't be marketing without data. So back in the day, we had no information, I guess, other than TV commercial views or whatnot. But now, if we think about that big kind of infrastructure, we're able to manage lots of little pieces of data and use that to inform our continuous growth. So I just want to share a couple of really classic examples. Coca-Cola, I'm just imagining this kind of Mad Men room where they've spent months and millions coming up with this poster to tell us that it's quality and trustworthy. To put it into context, that's a big, bulky effort. And then that's that kind of brand awareness. Where we are these days is this machine of many places and lots of content that we have to be continually feeding and using those places to tell really good stories. And so another one, Vegemite, same kind of idea, where we've had this, it's a vitamin food, and we're broadcasting our main message into this kind of new world where we have, in this instance, the example is around this idea of user-generated content. So people are being a voice for your business and your brand online. People are posting their sandwiches and linking it back to Vegemite. So it really is a different world that we are in. And so I do just want to thinking about that. I want to give a bit of an example, a bit of an insight into maybe what a customer journey looks like, what a customer might be doing to kind of step through that. So if we think about the Glenelg Vic campaign, if you saw this on a billboard or you saw this online, we're not necessarily just going to see this and then book a holiday. And so that, thinking back to that funnel, we need to be educating and feeding and continually kind of being in front of people in lots of smaller bite-sized chunks so that we're able to educate and inform and almost nurture somebody along to that point where they're going to take an action. And so here's an insight into me and my family. So if I saw that kind of brand campaign, the next thing, like most of you, we're going to be like, where's Portland? What's in Portland? So we're kind of sitting at that kind of that next stage, that higher level. Oh, there's beaches. Oh, there's surf. Oh, there's a couple of events. So we're still at that higher level. And so the next step for me, and this is where we start to really think about that we don't just want to be pushing out the standard kind of messaging. We want to get into the zone of thinking the way that your customer thinks. So for me, my next step, I kind of want to have a look at accommodation, how close I can get to the beach. I might want to have a look at the weather. But for me, a big decision maker as to where I go is how good the coffee is. And so I like to be close by. I like to be close by where the good coffee is. And so I'm making a decision on accommodation based on how many people have rated a coffee. And this is just that idea where we start to really think less around it as a digital touch point and more around what is the human actively doing and looking for, and how can I drill down into a much kind of, how can I be strategic and clever at that lower level? And here's my kind of deeper again. I'm not just sticking to the Googles, although I did. Well, I make a decision based on coffee and kids activities. So if there's a good park or some good kids things, that's where I'm going to start to make my decision. But I'm also drilling down into many more touch points. So I'm going to look at YouTube. I'm going to see some of that kind of user-generated content, and I kind of do care what other people rate a restaurant. And so this is just really to kind of talk about the fact that we've got these big campaigns, and we don't, as consumers, nobody ever just sees that campaign and books a holiday. They're looking in many, many different places. And so what we kind of call that journey is the customer journey, and that's the complete sum of experience, the experience that a customer goes through when interacting with your company and your brand. And this is moving, past all of those things to educate and inform. Transacting, there's a whole other section that happens after transactions. We definitely want advocates, so we've got to think about that kind of whole picture. But it's really important to think about the digital picture and the human picture. What are the behaviors of the human? What are they thinking? Where are they looking? What do they want to know? And then digitally, where can I be? And how can I get myself in those places and talking to those things? And so just a little bit more on the idea of this customer journey. Like I was saying before, the idea is that we want to attract strangers, and we want to move them into kind of prospects. We want to engage them. We want to educate them. We want to inform them. We want to make them customers. We want to delight them when they're customers. And we want those customers to then become the promoters for us to attract more strangers. What I like to do if I think about the digital journey of this is I like to step it out into this kind of process where we're moving from awareness to engagement, to capturing, to nurturing, to interacting and responding. And finally, we'll get that kind of sales. So awareness is those broadcast things, those old school kind of, Coca-Cola posters. In this day and age, broadcast can just as much be social media posts. And so what we're trying to do is we're pushing these things out into the world, and we want people to engage with them and land somewhere. And where they land, this is where we own what happens then. We get to inform them. So usually that might be, here's a bit more information, but then we want to capture this person. And so this can be either in a contact form, this can be sign up to a newsletter, because we want to move that relationship down to a one-to-one, where I'm able to then, if I've captured their email address, I'm able to then, deliver one-to-one messaging to that person, or I'm able to interact and respond to that person, and I'm bringing them closer and closer to the transaction. I just wanted to give you a really quick example of this is how easy or quick it can be to quickly pull together a bit of a customer journey. Now, this might be for your business as a whole, but it can just as easily be for a campaign. So at that broadcast level, I've listed out some traditional media or traditional kind of marketing, and I've gone through and selected what kind of digital things I'd like to be doing to get some awareness. And then I'm going to link those things to a place, because I always want there to be another next step. And that place in this example was the website homepage, where I wanted the next thing to be was a sign up. So that's where I wanted to capture their details. Once I've captured it, I sent them a little bit of information. Once I sent them information, I gave them the opportunity to share stuff, ask questions, and interact with me. And whenever we did that, I was always pushing them to where they could buy a ticket. So when I'm doing this marketing effort, I'm never just doing a social post. I'm always thinking about those kind of 5 steps. And so if we think about all the different kind of marketing tactics that I had listed there, so some of those traditional things, media, that kind of stuff, and the digital stuff, when it comes time to deciding, I guess, what your tactics are and thinking through that kind of thing, I always like to move through the kind of earned and owned media in the first instance, because they're things that are free, and they're or particularly owned is what I have control over. This is just a really good way to think about the type of activity that you're doing. So earned media is where we might get publicity. Publicity is not something that can just happen to you. That's things that you can actively encourage. Publicity, for the most part, is free. Shared media, so we can be doing some activities to promote sharing, promote co-branding, promote influencer engagements, that kind of thing. When it comes to owned, I like to think of owned as your website. You get to put what you want on there. You get to put whatever content or stories or videos that you put out into the world. And obviously paid. So paid is where we might do sponsor ads. The reason I think this is a really good illustration is that when we're talking about being found online, what we're trying to essentially do is get earned media, get shared media, manage our owned media, and paid is a bit of an art form when it comes to online, if we want to be doing some of those kind of, you know, generated sponsored posts. But when we talk about being found online, there's a huge amount of stuff that we can be doing that isn't the paid activity. And right in the center there is something that we call authorities. So this is where we've been able to optimize our content. We have a vast amount of shared content. We have engaging content, and the all-important Google authority. So we're going to now move into a little bit of Google land. Classic joke, the best place to hide a dead body is page 2 of the Google results. So, I mean, Google runs the world. It's where everybody looks up their information. It's where everybody's doing that education piece. So what can we be doing in there to get the most out of it? Interestingly, you know, Google says that they are the masters of organizing the content on the web. They are. But I wanted to point out that they say even before you have entered a search, Google is organizing information. So this is something to think about. There's a lot of things that we can be doing even before somebody actually enters the search. I put a link there. There's some really good information as to how Google works. So the first thing we should think about when we're working with search is the types of search that people do. We have that they want to do something. So I want to buy a plane ticket. I want to go away for the weekend. I want to, you know, actively do something. The second one is no. So this is where people are, you know, they're feeding their mind, they're after information, they're self-educating, and go. So this is where we look at the more specific things. So I want to go to Portland YMCA gym. And so that's going to be a much quicker result. The other thing I wanted to mention was around this idea of kind of long tail keywords. So long tail keywords we'll start with long tail keywords, but these are things where you might ask something quite specific and long. So how can I wash the rust off my bike? And so what we need to think about is that's a really targeted question and targeted problem. And so quite often, if you are trying to match your content to that type of search, you will probably get less search traffic to your content, but you will get more targeted and more relevant matching. So it's not always about a big list of keywords. Sometimes you can go get a smaller amount of people with a longer and more targeted search term. But Google is all about two things. That he could be a she, is all about relevance. So they want to provide people the most relevant information based on the search. And they also want to supply them an authoritative result. And so we're going to talk a little bit about this idea of authoritative. So the question to you is, are the pages on your site the best and most relevant results when a search is conducted? So how can you build more authority in Google's eyes? And so we're going to talk a little bit about SEO. So this is search engine optimization. So this is stuff that you can be doing for free in small pieces over time, and it's slowly going to build your site to be relevant and authoritative. So I've completely lost track of time. So
yeah, I mean, I could listen to you all day, Emma. This stuff is stuff I'm really interested in. I'm sure many people are. So you've got about 5 minutes.
Oh, that's cool. I'll be good. Cheers. And so we're essentially talking about improving and promoting a website in order to increase the numbers of visitors to that site. So here are some of the things that kind of matter when doing that. So firstly, your site needs to be secure and accessible. We talk about speed. And so that means like how quick somebody can click about, how quick your page loads, how quick your images load. Mobile friendly. So, I mean, everybody's doing it from their phone. So Google ranks mobile friendliness. There's a couple of things around the actual domain age and the URL and how kind of relevant that is as well. Something that is really easy for businesses is optimized content. So this is where you start to really tweak your content to match the relevance of that person's information gathering. There's some technical SEO stuff which we're not going near. User experience. So, you know, Google knows how easy it is for that person to find what they're looking for. If they've searched in vanilla ice cream and they have to go through 7 pages to find something about vanilla ice cream, Google doesn't like that. Links, which we're going to talk about, social signals, which is interacting social to your site, and consistent and real business information.
Sorry, Emma, it's Theo here again. I didn't look at the clock when I said you had 5 minutes. So, like, if you can try and, you know, give us the really most important stuff.
All right, I'm going to wrap up. Cool. So I will skip on page and off page. It's essentially about the things that happen off page, which is, you know, getting links back to your website. Google really likes that, especially if they're authoritative. So Localised is a really good authority place to have your information, because Google likes it, that it interacts with government. They bump up, so then your site bumps up as well. I'm going to be super quick. On page, this is where the meta, so having a look at making sure your images have alt text, because Google can't scan images. Google needs to see what you call it, what's in it. User-generated content, let's just leave that. We know what user-generated content is. We definitely want to make sure we're getting reviews, we're sharing, liking, retweeting, and make sure we have our Google My Business all sorted. So I will wrap up now with a couple of key takeaways, Theo. It's always human and digital. So there's a human is trying to move through that information gathering and get relevant information. And Google also cares about matching that search to that relevant information. So we want to think about the human aspect and the digital aspect. We want to think about it as a connected and linked experience. So people need that click journey to make sense. If I've typed in vanilla ice cream and I get car racing, Google doesn't like that. So we need that to make sense. Trust. So humans on the internet, people trust what other humans say. Google also works through and builds a trust for your site. Probably the most important one, many small efforts in many places. We don't need to be doing a big effort for our SEO. We just need to continually grow our footprint and iterate it. And lastly, probably the main one, something like the Glenelg campaign is a really big campaign with big spend. Something like Localised has built all of this authority online. We don't need to try be those. We don't need to be doing the big campaigns, but what we do need to do is think about how we can be that person's next click. How can we be the next thing that that person wants to look at? Most importantly, marketing entourage.online. If you just create an account with our learning portal for free, we have a huge amount of resources in there, a lot of free content. We've got a how to Google My Business and a couple of other free bits and pieces. I did jump over a few things, so if anyone wants to backtrack in the networking or whatever, just let me know. But I'll also provide this presentation so people can have a read.